We're going to try and keep it short and snappy today with 20 minutes for our presentation and 10 minutes allocated at the end to run through any questions that you may have. By intro, I'm Kirsty McLaren, a director of recruitment agency McLaren Associates, which specialises in recruitment at all levels, from administration to chief executive and everything in between. We work across all sectors and are particularly well known for our expertise in the non-profit, membership and professional association space. Leading today's webinar, we have Gordon Holmes and Wendy McPhail from My Career Brand. Gordon is a career coach who helps people gain clarity about the direction in which they'd like to take their careers. He leads My Career Brand's career direction and development practice. And Wendy is a trained Gallup Clifton Strengths coach, and along with strengths coaching, she leads My Career Brand's team strengths workshops. So over to you, Gordon and Wendy.
Wendy.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Kirsty. Great introduction, and welcome to everybody who's in our webinar today. So the purpose of our session is to actually provide you with a framework to get your career off to a great start in 2023. So, we're 6 weeks into it nearly now. So it's, hopefully we've had a great start. If you're in Auckland, I hope that actually hasn't been too wet. It has been wet. We hope you're all right with it. So if we're looking at saying, how do we launch into 2023? What does it actually look like? So it's very much a new year. It's a new beginning. It's time to take stock of your career. The key here is it's time to act. I think we've got a little bit laissez-faire, perhaps, in the sense of we're working from home. We might have the pot plant in the corner. We've got the coffee cup on the desk. We've got the pen and the notebook. You've got your computer sitting to the other side, and life's fairly sweet. However, as we all know, the definition of insanity is if we keep doing the same thing that we've always done, we'll always get what we've always got. And so if you're thinking, maybe I need a change in my career, maybe I'd like to be doing something different, we want to take you from the thought process to the action process. And these thoughts are not like your New Year's Eve resolutions, where you wake up, you make lots of changes, you make lots of decisions, and then by about now, 6 weeks into the new year, the new gym membership that you've signed up is not being used, the diet's gone by the wayside, and if you haven't really thought about your career too much, you probably haven't even got started. So we've come along and we're wanting to give you a little bit of a kickstart and a little bit of energy, and take those New Year's resolutions into actuality. This is actually about learning to live life deliberately. Most people only make changes when catastrophe happens. So we know that, it's a fact. And so it might be a job change, it might be an illness, it might be someone passing in a family. It's just like, gosh, I need to do something differently. We hear about helping you to plan for what you might need to do for the future. And better still, if you've got a plan, you're more likely to do it. If it's written down, you're far more likely to execute it. In this career piece, interestingly, I put a plan together when I was 25, and I still enact that plan, and I have largely lived it out. And yes, I may have actually taken some side roads along the way, but the core of the plan is still very much in place. The key thing here is you need to overlay that with what's happening in the big wide world. So we're saying it's time to act, take stock, but what's happening out there in the market? And what we're seeing is there's increased applications on Seek, increased competition for jobs. Now, this should make you uneasy. Driving to the office this morning, I was listening to someone saying that they had advertised a job 2 weeks before Christmas. They had 3 applicants. They advertised exactly the same job last week. They've now got 47. Job hasn't even closed. So more competition for the same roles. We've got the lowest business confidence in 50 years. And so that should make us uneasy, because we can't assume what has been, especially in these last 2 or 3 years with COVID, that they will continue. Things are different. We've had Auckland flooded in the last few weeks. It's had a very big impact on many people's lives, and also the Coromandel. Lower remuneration offers relative to 2022 excesses. We don't quite know what's happening in this space. We had a pretty good read of it yesterday with an increase in the minimum wage. For those people who haven't had pay increases in the last year, there's an expectation now that that will flow through. But on the flip side of that, the uneasy side of that is we're already seeing businesses. There was a large organisation nationwide, representation in basically most New Zealand cities. This morning, staff all called to a meeting with some pretty grim news about what was going to happen as a result of this happening, and that's going to flow through. So as a candidate or as someone looking at a career change or looking at wanting to make a change, you need to put more due diligence and a strategic assessment into what you require. You don't want a job hop. You want that next job to be the next big job, the one you're really wanting to do. And we're also seeing that applicants need to lift their game, not just in terms of waking up and applying for a job, but the quality of how you actually interact and present with recruiters, such as like McLaren, with employers, and with a network, because often those job opportunities come via a network. So most importantly, how do you stand out from the crowd? What makes you different? And this is really where we work very closely along with the value proposition.
And as Wendy said at the beginning, new year, new beginning, take stock of your career. So before acting for 2023, what we recommend is that you actually do some thinking about how your last year went. What reflections have you had? What new insights might you gain from that? So on the slide, you'll see reflecting on how the job went over the past year, considering whether you liked it and could it have gone better. How did you utilize your capabilities, your skills, your competencies and your strengths? How well do they match to what you've got to offer and what you're seeking? And did you or do they meet what you would like in your work and career? So from doing those reflections, what insights do you gain from that? For those of you that attended the November webinar, Jumpstart Your Career for 2023, we provided a My Career Brand review template. So some of you may have used that template to work through that review from 2022 and reached some conclusions about what you'd like to do in 2023 in terms of your job and your career. There's a possible number of outcomes from your review. It could be that there's no change that you want to do. You're very happy with your current job and your current career path. That's a really happy place to be. So that's one possible outcome. Another outcome might be that you want to make changes within your current job. Our jobs are made up of tasks and relationships. So it might be that we can make some amendments to those to further enhance our current job. A third outcome might be that you want to change your job within the same organisation. And that's much easier to do if you're in a large organisation. And I know many of us aren't in large organisations, but if you are, then that might present opportunities to further your career within the same organisation where you've got a well-established brand and reputation. Each of those first three possible outcomes then can be turned into action using a career development plan. And you might have a career development plan template from your current employer, which you could utilize to take your goals for 2023 and turn them into specific actions that are measurable and you can monitor progress against. Or you might create your own action plan to do it for the year, or you may wish to engage with My Career Brand, and you'll see a reference to our career development plan template on the slide. So those are the three first possible outcomes. The fourth possible outcome is that you might seek a new job and or career change with an external organisation. So you want to make a change and go in a different, with a different organisation or in a different direction. And that has different requirements.
So if that's sounding like you need to be prepared. You know, we want to make sure that you get the best possible opportunities, even if you're actually first making contact with McLaren or any recruiter. It's like you need to have yourself organised. And so, yes, I focus a little bit on strengths in the organisation, but I work across everything that we offer. So the first thing here is like, know your strengths. Your strengths are really important. The strengths are important because it also allows you to address how you manage the things you're not so good at, or the weaknesses. Inevitably, in a job interview, you'll be asked about the things you're really good at. Inevitably, you'll be asked about the things you're not so good at. So if you overcommit, do too much work, and then things like your yoga class or your run goes by the wayside because you actually need to be finishing the work, your strength is going to let you talk to that. Because if someone says, well, what are you not good at, Wendy? And I say, well, I tend to be really passionate about the work that I do. My answer to the weakness piece would be, well, actually, I'm really well scheduled. So I've learned from my strengths and the talents that I've got there to turn that around. So my weakness is actually something I continue to work on. You can't actually put them under the rug and send them away, but you can improve them. You need to be clear on your direction. Time and time again, people come to us with an idea or maybe a job they want to apply for. Now, the key thing here is often as you work through the process and we talk to people about really where their talents, their strengths and their passions lie, we find that original job that have come to us with is actually not really them. So we're actually focusing and getting clear on what it is you want to be doing. You need to develop your value proposition, and this is around really what's making you unique. How do you stand out from the crowd? How do you differ from other people? Updating your CV and LinkedIn profile. We're not CV writers. We've got an incredibly robust process that actually lets you go through the process of evolving updated, new, state-of-the-art CVs and LinkedIn profiles that people pay attention to. And with that, you gain the confidence to be able to talk to an employer or a recruiter about what it is that you want. You're not actually going to get a phone call and be going like the fish out of water with the big mouth going, bah, 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 I'm not sure what I want. You're going to be able to articulate that line very clearly. You're going to develop a go-to-market strategy. Now, one of these aspects, of course, is working with a recruiter like McLaren, but it's also not the only way people get jobs. So we're going to make sure that your strategy encompasses your network, using the likes of your LinkedIn profile. I've had a client just recently who came out of a job after a very long time. We put a very robust strategy together. And with that, they made a post on LinkedIn, had something like just under 100 comments, and within 2 weeks had 3 job offers. And so, these things are really pertinent to who you are and what you can do differently. We also utilise an opportunity assessment tool, and this helps to come back to being clear on your direction and what it is that you want to be doing. You need to assess, what's the job description actually about? How do you align to that? And by going through this process and using our tool, it actually very clearly helps you decide, actually, this isn't for me, or yes, in fact, I really, really want this job. So part of this is getting all these pieces together, and that's how we work at My Career Brand. But then the next piece is going a little bit deeper with your due diligence, and then how that actually takes place.
So as Wendy said, you do this opportunity assessment, but as part of it, a due diligence is a subset of that. And as we referenced at the beginning of the webinar, what's happening in the marketplace is very pertinent. And whilst we always recommend due diligence, the changes in the marketplace make it even more important now that we do. You may have your own checklist of due diligence. We've got a My Career Brand template for this, and it's got a set of questionnaires, a set of questions on that template that you can work through to give you a more informed information about the opportunity to make a more informed decision as to whether you want to proceed with it or not. So there are questions on the checklist such as clarifying in writing whether there's any hybrid or working from home policies and how well they meet with your requirements, preferences and expectations. It might be another question like, have you assessed the impact of any economic downturn or recession on the organisation and its ability to provide me with ongoing employment? Because some sectors might be more at risk of reductions in staff numbers than other sectors. And you may want to check the remuneration. Is it reasonable given current and future job market conditions? For a number of sectors, there are likely to be lower remuneration offers than some of the excesses of 2022. So we strongly recommend that you use a due diligence checklist as part of the information gathering for assessing the opportunity. It's also useful to know what recruiters gain from their clients when vacancies come their way. And so, Kirsty, it would be useful to know what sorts of questions you ask clients when you're picking up a role, so that you can understand about the role and convey what is passed on to you to your clients. So, Kirsty.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, even if you are working with a recruiter, as Gordon said, it's so important to do your own due diligence when considering an opportunity. We always do our best to ensure that we receive a full briefing from our client, who's the employer, each and every time we pick up a new role, so that we can mitigate any surprises and ensure that candidates have a full understanding of what they might be in for. So obviously we ask things like, what are the skills and experience a candidate needs to undertake the role effectively, but we also try to delve really deeply to try and understand things that the successful candidate needs to know before they accept the role. So an example of those questions are, what does a typical day look like? What does success look like in this role? What's the team and office culture like? What are the key issues that are facing the organisation or the sector at the moment? Are there any issues that a new person would need to be aware of going into a new role? For example, if it's a leadership role, are there any staffing issues I'd need to be aware of? Or are there any financial issues I need to be aware of? And also, what are the main challenges that this person might face in the next, in the first 6 to 12 months? So by being really upfront, candidates will know what they're getting into, and as Gordon says, they can make that informed decision on whether to accept the role. And it also means that they can start to think about and go into the role knowing how they might tackle those challenges. Even so, through all of those comprehensive questions, on occasion, we have had candidates start a new role and been a bit blindsided by something because the employer perhaps hasn't been entirely transparent through the process with us or the candidate. So just really highlights the need to be really thorough and to do your due diligence through the process. And I think my career brand, Gordon, Wendy, am I correct that you will be sharing that due diligence checklist with attendees of today's webinar?
Yes, we'll talk to that in a moment, but we'll be emailing all the people that have registered that wanted to hear back from us. And as part of that email, we'll say that the template is available and people are welcome to request the template and we'll make it available to them. So as Kirsty said, the template's here to be used, but also draw on what recruiters like McLaren gather from the client as part of your due diligence, but do further due diligence as well. It's incumbent on you that you do. It's just so important to do.
Right, so you've probably worked out now that we have a particularly robust system, both here at My Career Brand and Kirsty with McLaren. So in order, and our role is really to help people attain that next big role or to get clear on their career. And, particularly like the question, Kirsty, that you just asked about, what does a typical day look like? I'm not sure. In our world, it's different. Every candidate we get is different and unique, which is good because it means that we don't actually just sheep dip people. We actually come from the place that you're starting at. Which in listening to what Kirsty was saying is exactly relevant for McLaren as well. So we'd actually like to suggest that in order to help you get that next big role or to help you in the direction of your career, that there is a 10% offer off all 4-hour plus My Career Brand coaching. That link's coming out to you with an email following the webinar. And the registrations need to be made prior to Friday, the 24th of February. So there's more detail on that. And we'll also be in touch if you've asked us to contact you when you're registered, and we're aware of those people. So Gordon and myself will be making contact with you just in view of any questions that you've got. You may have got more subsequent to the webinar, or if there are other things that we can assist with, we'll happily answer those questions at the time.
Kirsty, would you just like to cover again how people can best engage with McLaren?
Yeah, absolutely. So this slide is taken from our November webinar and talks about engaging effectively with McLaren or a recruitment agency. It's all about those long-term relationships, being really open and transparent in what it is that you're looking for, what you can and can't do, and representing your skills and experience accurately. Communicate early. Let us know if anything changes for you. Be contactable and do what you say you will do. And we will certainly do all of those things with you in return. We have a really great resource of blogs that we've written on our website. You'll see the URL there on the screen. It's got all sorts of resources for job seekers around the job seeking process, different contract types, all sorts. So please do go and have a look at our website. And if you've got any questions about recruitment or job seeking in which we could help, please get in touch with us. And for those that have said they'd like to hear from us in regards to new opportunities, we will also be in touch with you following today's webinar.
Great, thanks, Kirsty. We've covered a lot of material, so we're now ready to take some questions, please.
So we've got, I know the market always slows down over the holidays and would generally be expected to pick up soon. I've been contracting for around 2 years in the L&D space and my contract will expire soon. What do you see happening with role availability for the coming months? I'm weighing up moving back into the permanent full-time space or remaining contracting.
Do you want to have a crack at that, Kirsty?
Yeah, Joe, as an agency, we don't work extensively in contracting, but in speaking with an industry colleague this week, they said they've seen contracting dropping off, which is interesting. I'm not sure what the driver is behind that, but it could be the time to consider moving into a permanent role, you know, with the changes that we're seeing in the economy. It's going to be an election year. It could be something for you to consider. Typically, Q1 is usually the busiest following holidays in terms of, you know, people moving around, those New Year's resolutions, people spend the holidays thinking, good, I can't do another year in that role. So we do typically see Q1 is pretty busy in terms of role numbers and people moving. Next question, what sort of feedback should a candidate expect from the recruiter following the candidate's interview with the organisation? So that's once a candidate has had an interview with the employer directly following meeting a recruiter, I'm assuming. And the feedback that they should expect should be well, firstly, whether or not they got the role, and some constructive feedback if they weren't successful in their application as to what were the areas that perhaps they didn't have the experience in that the successful candidate did, and whether there were any suggestions that you know, they could use to move forward with. Sometimes we do get limited feedback from a client, which is obviously not helpful for a job seeker, but we do our best to ensure we get as in-depth feedback for you as possible to ensure that it's constructive and to help you with future processes if you're not successful with that one.
I always encourage people to go back and get information if they haven't got it. It can be approached in a very nice way that's non-confrontational, just to gather additional feedback, and it's another opportunity to articulate your value proposition if you're really keen on the role.
Our next question, you mentioned that you don't write CVs, Wendy. Do you help with writing CVs?
We definitely do. We have a very robust process that takes you through the development of a CV, an updated LinkedIn profile, all actually culminating in a very well-articulated value proposition. So when you have someone write your CV, in fact, this week I've had the conversation with someone offshore who has actually paid for 2 different CV writers to write a CV. I engaged in a conversation online, and anyway, as a result of that, have received the CV from said person because I was a bit concerned about what had been going on, and the quality of the CV was absolutely terrible. I will be very honest on that. And then engaging with the person, what had happened is paid for two different independent CV writers, and then it culminated them together. And then, in fact, she's in a worse position than the original CV she'd written herself. And so when we talked about the difference between what a CV writer would do and what we would expect someone to have gone through the process with My Career Brand and be able to talk confidently to what you've achieved and the benefits you can bring an organisation, the lights completely went on. And so that's the difference. It's, you know, there are CV writers out there and people do use them, and that's perfectly all right. But ours is a much more in-depth process, which actually gets you typically to a much stronger value proposition to help you stand out from the crowd. So I hope that answers the question.
Gina asked, do you provide guidance on getting promotions, for example, going from advisor to senior advisor?
I have a client in the situation that's wanting to go from being an individual contributor to a people leader, and that's often a difficult first move. So yes, we do work with clients to help with their career development. So we do a gap analysis between what they're targeting and where they are at the moment, and then put in place a robust career development plan to achieve that. So the answer is yes.
Thank you. And this is along similar lines. Do you do any work helping people to move from senior leadership roles into paid directorships?
We certainly do. And that's a natural next step for many of our senior leaders that we work with. And I've probably got 3 or 4 people at the moment who are actually in that exact position. So, and they come in different forms. Some of these people are already in director roles. Others are actually wanting to get into director roles. Others are actually wanting to exit their full-time employment and actually move into this area, both from a giving back and also from obviously a paid director role. So they come in many forms, but yes, we do a lot of work around that too.
Thank you. How do you translate overseas experience from emerging economies to New Zealand-based recruiters or organisations? Often there's a lack of understanding of global work experience and less from specific geographies.
So we do have a number of clients in those situations. I've worked recently with a client that's done a lot of work in Pacific Island countries, and the challenge is that they're often put into a square hole and not understood what the transferable competencies are that these people have. So we work out where their value proposition is, what they've got that they can leverage, and articulate it in a way that will be helpful to New Zealand audiences and resonate with them. So I've worked with a number of clients in those sorts of situations to get better cut through, because often they don't have much success applying for roles, and it's not because they haven't got lots to offer. It's just that it needs to be presented and drawn out in a different way. So yes, absolutely can help with that.
Can I just add to that? I think the really important thing here is that you're actually not just generating one generic CV, that you actually need to pick out these transferable skills and be able to speak to them directly for the role that you're applying for. I think that's a mistake that I see, certainly with offshore experience, and actually bringing that in. So it needs to speak to the role, you know, what problem you're trying to solve for the organisation by putting your CV in there. Why should they employ you ahead of other people?
We've got one last question. I've recently had 3 interviews and been unsuccessful in securing the role. Do you have any advice in the interview space? As clearly my experience and skill set was of interest in order to get interviews, but I was unable to nail that aspect.
What we find is that sometimes it's difficult to articulate your value proposition and to answer questions in a way that best represents what you're able to offer and bring to the organisation. So we offer interview skills coaching, and it's really valuable for all levels of different careers that people might have had, to sharpen up those interview skills, enable people to articulate their value proposition very clearly, and to go into the interview confident, and to leave the interview feeling as though they've put their best foot forward, and not thought, oh, I wished I'd used another example, or I couldn't think of a question. There's also a step before the interview that sometimes trips up people, and that's where there's screening calls. And we help people with their pitch to get through those screening calls and into interviews as well. So we help with the pitch and interview skills coaching as well.
That's all that we have in terms of questions. A number of thank yous. That's nice. You're welcome. So I guess from here, McLaren will be in touch with you if you have asked for us to be in touch in regards to job seeking. And Wendy Gordon, you'd like to finish?
Thank you very much. So I think, the key here is make your career count. And for me, it's around, what gets you out of bed every day and go, yes, I can't wait to actually get to my desk or work with my people or, inspire my team. So, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it, keep looking, don't settle, the great Steve Jobs. So thanks for your time today. Short and sweet, but we've packed it with a lot of information, and we're there to talk to if you want to actually learn and hear a little bit more. So thanks very much.
Thanks. Bye.